kalbo ka na rin.
I haven't had it since college.
Since college, no?
Now is the time.
Yeah. I'd shave it off except my kids are they have very very strong opinions on shaved heads. My daughter Lucia, number 3, loves the idea, and then my eldest son doesn't. Kasi nga he feels that the father though should be dignified. I'm gonna let them talk it out. I'm gonna let them talk it out. I'm not having any part of that conversation.
Depends then on the shape of your head, man. I mean,
exactly. You have a head for
Well, we'll see.
You have the head for it.
You have the head for it. Galing. So, this is also the first time. See, Ed is actually one of the people who conceptualized this vlog with us. But this is the first time he's going to be joining us for an episode. And that's because of you, Raymond. Because, he's really very, very interested in how he should be adjusting moving forward.
I only know things about my school. I do not pretend to know what goes on in Ateneo or big school.
No, that's okay. Yeah. That's in fact also one of the reasons I asked to come aboard or to join was dinner. Like we're experimenting at home also. I mean, my kids go to a Montessori school, and so we're used to the whole self-paced learning, and then some of the learnings that we're getting from like running remote teams for corporate, because I do actually corporate consulting. Mm-hmm. Surprisingly, you find out that it's stuff you can apply into what we're doing with the kids. So it's interesting now. So we all try to speak from our own perspectives anyway. We're not here as like industry experts, but like guys who are just deeply passionate about the stuff that we're doing, and hopefully it helps somebody in a similar situation. So
wonderful.
Don't worry about it. But
Yeah.
So we'll be airing soon. Gusto natin i-invite yung mga taong nanonood ngayon na who caught the live signal coming out of their of their Facebook page, or while they're scouring through Facebook, nakita nilang may live yung Pop Beans or that other group that we are connected with right now. You can always join us. Pinaka-una nyo gagawin is i-share po ninyo yung live stream namin sa inyong mga kaibigan. At the same time, mag-isip-isip na po kayo ng mga tanong para sa aming guest tonight. Kasi napaka-interesting po ng aming papag-usapan. It's about about schools opening in probably June. I'm not sure if that's going to be the case kasi iba-ibang usapan rin whether or not it's really going to open this June. And of course, there'll be different arrangements because it's going to be a new normal. Meron ng the new normal na tinatawag. And we will talk about that later on. Paano mag-adjust ang ating mga eskwelahan sa bagong guidelines ng government, tsaka sa bagong setup, which is it's going to be a GCQ, di ba? So general community quarantine. Pag, if ever we reach that part by June, kung hindi dadami ang pasaway,
That's true.
So just hang on guys, medyo natatagalan akong mag-connect dun sa ang bagal ng computer.
Yeah. Don't worry.
Kailangan na yata ako maglinis ng hard disk. Kaya siguro ang bagal.
Yeah. It's okay, Ron. Alam naman namin na marami kang mga Disney videos dyan
Disney videos for your personal entertainment.
For your personal entertainment,
Meron tuloy ako naalala na story of a friend na may date sa Alabang pa talaga, where you're at right now, John D. Meron silang konting nagbi-make out daw sila sa labas ng bahay ng babae. And then he was playing this, diba? That time during the 90s, people used to use cassettes pa, diba? So he was playing like a selection in his cassette player. And then, so they were making out the whole time the cassette tape was playing. Siguro our guest doesn't know what the heck a cassette player is.
Nabutan naman. May DVD
Kaya
na,
na
DVD
Google.
pa rin
It's
kami.
the field of
Meron ba? So, yun na nga.
Yeah.
And then, medyo umabot na yung points siguro after an hour and a half kasi 45 minutes per side ang tape, di ba? Pagdating daw yata, magla-last song na. Ang ganda daw ng tugtugan eh. Talagang R&B, slow, tapos pang make-out music. Bigla na lang yung last song nung tape, lumabas yung yung song na ang song na nag-play daw from Little Mermaid.
Little Mermaid.
Little Mermaid song daw. Tapos talagang medyo nagpanic daw siya. Sinipa-sipa daw niya yung cassette player para tumigil kasi nakakahiya, diba? So this just reminded me of that for some reason. I don't know why. Pero sana. Grabe ang tagal nahihirapan talaga ako mag-connect. I don't know why it's hard. Okay. Ayun. Okay, got it.
Ayan.
All right.
Finally.
That's good.
So guys, don't forget to like the page, follow the page, and then share the streaming tonight kasi napaka-interesting po ng papag-usapan natin. Lalo if you're in Pop Beans right now. And since we are sharing this to another group which has a larger audience, ito na, pinost ko na. So hello to them. Hello to everyone who just bump into this streaming right now. First of all, we'll play a very interesting video for you para lang meron tayong pagkakatuwaan. Parang icebreaker natin with Raymond.
Sige.
So Raymond, if you don't mind icebreakers, meron tayong icebreaker ngayon. Meron tayong play na video. Tapos magko-commentary lang tayo. Kasi may hilig ang mga tao mag-commentary on videos posted on Facebook, di ba? So I'm hoping that this will be our first session that we'll do that. And then it's great that we have Raymond to be around when we do this for the first time, and also Ed, of course. So, ayun. Okay, so we're all set. Okay, guys. Medyo dumoble yung pag-play ko nun. Welcome, guys.
Good. You have to do it twice.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Istoryang futBOLERO. My name's Ron Poblete, and I'm with Eric Madrazo, John D. Bora, and of course, for the first time, we've been asking him to join us for quite some time now. Ed is with us tonight kasi Ed is very picky when it comes to topics. So ngayon, finally, meron tayong nahanap na topic na Ed can really latch on to.
Yeah.
So, sigurado masaya to. May alam daw si Ed sa topic na. And then we have, of course, Raymond. Raymond, welcome to the show. He is our special guest for the program. Raymond, before we get into this segment that we're gonna do, please introduce yourself to our viewers of Istoryang futBOLERO. Tell us a little bit about you.
Hi guys, I'm Raymond Villanueva. I run a school called Bannister Academy, where Mr. Bora was our principal during the early days.
What?
Yeah.
That's
Nag-football na ako.
He has skills other than football. So
Okay.
So we started Bannister about 10 years ago. It's a small school in Circulo Verde in Quezon City. It's been a wonderful experience these past 10 years. I'm married. I have a daughter also, chubby little girl, 4 years old. Thank you.
Amazing.
Just like everyone else, I'm here at home, locked up, and looking forward to being able to leave pretty soon. Sana.
You would have thought, Raymond, that you're a married guy with a kid. You look like you're fresh out of college, buddy.
Thank you.
Amazing. That's absolutely
the lighting now that Vice Bora gave, wonderful.
It's all about the lighting, no?
It is.
All the single ladies.
Point them. Or the camera. The camera that he's using is making him like 10 years younger. But Raymond, welcome to the program. Napaka-interesting ng topic tonight. We just want people to join us because syempre, lalo-lalo yung mga kabataan ngayon na nanonood, they're wondering when they're gonna go back to school. Tapos yung mga parents natin, syempre, nagbabayad ng tuition. So, iniisip nila kaagad, oh my God, laki-laki na ng gastos ko sa pagpapaaral ng aking mga anak. Hindi ko man alam anong mangyayaring arrangement by next school year, di ba?
Yeah.
So, I'm sure pinapag-usapan ito ngayon sa inyong mga bahay ng mga magulang ninyo at saka ng inyong mga anak, lalo na siguro yung mga anak ngayon, walang ginawa kung hindi mag-gaming. Tapos, and the parents are in a hurry to get them back to school because all they do at home is just play games.
Yeah.
So that's a huge possibility. If not,
it's a challenge talaga.
Yeah, it's a challenge. And especially if you have like kids, you have little kids in the house and they're not going to school, and then every day you're inside the house, you're with your family. It's a good thing, of course, but also the only negative thing about that is you will have to contend with disciplining your kids all day long, every day, 24/7. You're gonna have to attend to your little kids and make them stop whatever it is that they're doing, throwing the toys, everywhere, and then making a mess, stuff like that.
That's true.
So the only reprieve you get is when they're in school, di ba? And when you're at work. But now everybody's at home. So yun yung ating ngayon papag-usapan. And of course, Raymond will give us some insight because he runs a school. He definitely knows that, I'm sure they've had Zoom meetings. Like just earlier, we had like 3 hours. We met, I was meeting with some of the people from the DILG, and it took us 3 hours to talk about, what went on for the last months. So I can imagine like other institutions now having their own Zoom meetings every day.
Yeah.
And they would talk about things in length. I know of like meetings that would run for 6 hours straight. So sometimes I wonder how they can sustain that. So I'm sure Raymond would have some great insight, and I'm sure he just came from meetings with his school himself, like the staff of his school. Maybe he can talk about that as well. But before we do this, though, guys, I hope you don't mind. Let's just indulge me a little bit. Do you want to kickstart this with this program with a very interesting video on social media? Hindi ko alam kung napanood na to ng mga kakilala natin or yung mga nanonood ngayon. Pero this thing is crazy. I just want you to be honest, give your honest opinion on what went on in this particular video shared by our friend Franco Mabanta. Hang on, let me see if I can share this one and go. All right, let's play it for you. You can see this, no? You can see this. You can see the screen, no?
That video. Yeah.
I saw this one. Please, go ahead.
Christmas! Oh, no, hindi ko pa napapan.
Kaya nga. Umamura ka.
Oh, wow.
Kahit nga.
Wild, no?
I haven't seen this.
How far is he trying to go, though?
Sige, nanggigil ka. Manghula kami. Oo nga.
Sakit sa ulo.
Hindi ka makaintindi ah. Alam mong heart lockdown to, heart lockdown. Ha? Oh. Ikaw wala pang Christmas ah. You're violating is you. Na?
Oh my God.
Sige.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
All right.
Oh, wow. I think, yeah.
Sakit sa ulo.
Medyo naging chubby yung
Line niyo.
yung video for a while there.
Naging chubby.
Well, not to say that the woman was chubby, pero naging chubby yung line.
It was hard to determine. She had so many layers on.
Oh, maraming layers. Eh.
He's well dressed.
In the
He's
seat.
well dressed. Yeah.
Well dressed siya, no?
He's well dressed.
She looked like she
Something lang,
wanted to go to the mall or something.
Yeah, to deliver a bag, she was very well dressed.
Diba, diba?
Ay,
So, medyo ano nga eh, nakakaano rin eh, no? Na it caught my eye definitely today because there are like a few videos out there and pictures that just show you how hard-headed some people are. I mean, man, kita mo naman na sinabi na nga sa'yo against the law yung ginagawa mo. You're violating ECQ rules. Tapos pinapagpilitan mo na abot mo lang yung bag mo. Kung sa Amerika yan, John D, you've been in the States, right? Ed, I'm sure you guys. Sa tingin mo, ano mangyayari kung sa Amerika nangyari yan?
Well, the America that we knew, not the current America, because that's really a basket case right now.
Yeah, but what do you think? If that happened in the States, you violating obviously a law, and then you're trying to explain yourself, rationalizing your actions, then obviously, and then it's taking them so long to do something about it. Eh, ano na nga, nagmumura na siya, tapos ang dami na niyang sinasabi. Kasi marami tayong nakikita mga video sa States, yung mga tao nagrereklamo, or merong sinasabi, or they're going against the authority. Talagang bigla na lang ihampas sa kotse, tapos pinupusasan, di ba? Walang tanong, wala nang salita-salita. They're not gonna allow that person to berate you. So, but in the Philippines, we are so tolerant of people like that. And I don't know, Rick.
Well, it's an observation also, and I think it's part of our culture that we are very accommodating, to people like that. And I think also, marami nagko-comment nga about that, comparing the PNP versus the police in other countries wherein they're very, very strict. Parang minimum tolerance lang eh. Dito kasi may, part of our culture, and I think also na may standing order kasi si President Duterte na maximum tolerance talaga kailangan nilang gawin, di ba? So I think that plays a part also. To the point that these people think that they can actually mouth their way out of situations like that. And it's a sorry sight. And these are things that I don't like to watch. Sa totoo lang. Kasi nakakainis eh. Parang, so, personally, I mean, I don't know about you guys, pero personally, kung ako yung nandoon, kung ako yung nagmamana ng checkpoint, pinasasang ko na yun, bro. As in, fuck this. I mean,
posas na lang. Sa presinto ka na magpaliwanag, di ba? Yun yung
exactly. Yun na nga yun eh. Anyway,
John D, what do you think? I mean,
I'm actually very interested in what Ed's opinion on this is. Because,
Ed.
This is Ed's maiden voyage dito sa ating programa.
Yeah.
As with everything, it's always about context. I mean, there's no call for her to go crazy, but at the same time, you understand where people are coming from when you hear about, this is just one of many videos where you see that, are we really, and there's this feeling about, do people really understand on both sides, right? The guidelines, like what are these guidelines in place for? Like she kept arguing, abot ko na naman. So in her mind, she's thinking, okay, ano bang mangyari? I'm walking a few more steps and I'm handing a bag over. What harm can that do? But then you can also look at the flip side of it and say, okay, we start making exceptions like this, and it becomes a very gray area. It becomes something where you say, paano na, diba? Yeah. So she's able to explain. So unfortunately, or fortunately, in some cases, it's easier or it's more objective. It's easier to be objective when you go to, let's say, the letter of the law as opposed to the spirit of the law. But that is something that I think is always worth discussing, diba? Pwede naman i-discuss niya sa presinto. Doon siya magpaniwanag. And then, depende kung medyo tolerant yung chief or ano. Because you also see examples of people who are very understanding. Diba? They'll say, okay, nagwawala na yung tao, pero yung tao, like you said, this guy hindi niya pinusasa kaagad. Eventually, he raised his voice. But he was also not, let's put it plainly, he was also not arguing from a point of reason. He just kept yelling, bawal na eh, bawal na eh. Pero how
that's
did you
right,
say to her, bakit siya bawal? Anong, diba? How do you make this instead of an us versus them situation? It's like, I've always said to you guys, us and them, us all together versus this virus. And you just have to make sure everybody's playing their part, I suppose. It's unfortunate that every now and then sumasabog ng ganyan. Diba? And then naha-highlight pa kasi yung mga nagpa-viral. Oh, kids, oh, look at that lady with a loud dress and an even louder mouth, right? But
actually,
two sides to every story.
There are two things
Galing
I can
naman ni
point
Ed,
out.
grabe.
Siyempre, si Ed na yan eh. There are two things I can point out. There are two things that I can point out in that situation that's endemic of our problem is as a society. One thing for sure is our law enforcement, they lack the communication skills. They sometimes when they apprehend somebody, parang kulang sila sa explanation as to what the problem is, why they're arresting this person off. It's just about, yun nga sabi ni Ed, parang I'm the authority, you just listen. Makinig ka. But walang effort on their part to actually explain why they're getting arrested.
It's not even about authority sometimes, bro. Like, diba? Lot of them are not even pulling ranks. But if they don't also understand the guideline, hindi nila mapapaliwanag. I mean,
well, that's true.
I work with a lot of corporate guys, and I'm sure you've dealt with a call center person or front desk person. Just said, sir, yun yung rule, eh. Yun yung patakaran.
But also,
Pero I have an argument there. I have an argument kasi we're at the 59th day of ECQ, something that never happened before. Tapos do the police still need to explain that to people? I mean,
no, I'm just saying, Rick, in general, not only in this particular situation, but in most cases, kasi obviously it really depends on the level of skill a police, a person of authority. An enforcer can explain the rule. So doon nagde-depend yun. But in this case, syempre, we have to consider the fact that the police have been going through a lot of stress lately. Even though in the forefront of, in the front lines, they're like manning all the checkpoints and they're doing this 24/7. Day in and day out. Exactly. So you have to cut them some slack. But at this
Go ahead. But I can say lang, in a certain way, this is reflective of, the way that people have understood the guidelines for the ECQ. I remember, this is a case of senor and senora. Remember Senor Para in the Swaritas Village? Remember, he didn't react very appropriately also to the policeman. But then, that's early on in the ECQ, and the guy was obviously under some sort of, under the influence of something. So, the policeman tried to be very, very patient. But for this case, and I agree now, 59th day already, diba? And the policeman had no choice but to keep on repeating himself. Because in his mind, he's going probably, napakahirap na nga ng trabaho ko, tapos napakatagal na itong ECQ natin.
Exactly.
And yet, yung simpleng science of transmission, di ba? I'm sure by now, even the law enforcement officials are very familiar with the science of transmission. How you can possibly transmit the virus, di ba? From an otherwise healthy person to another person who might be more vulnerable. And parang siguro, it all came to a head na lang, and then the poor policeman, di ba, lacking any other coping mechanisms for this sort of hard-headedness, had to end up repeating himself. So it was kind of sad also, because the lady put him in a position where he had to question. Sabi niya, is this really happening to me? Itong babae ba talaga na to? 59th day, di pa marunong magsuot ng face mask? Di ba dapat pa talaga mag-face mask siya?
Yeah.
Why is she wearing so many layered clothing? Did she come from Japan? Galing ba siyang naiya? Yeah. So, there's a lot of things going on.
Update.
Wow.
Nahuli.
Okay.
Nakulong na si Miss nakulong. And that brings me to my second point about the woman naman. I mean, I talked about the police now, the woman who got arrested. First of all, she reflects, she actually, she's an example of how some people are in the Philippine setting. Alam na nilang mali, and then they still explain themselves and naghahanap pa rin ng palusot para lang they can do what they want. So, this is not the first time we've seen a video like this. Remember that attorney, the lawyer in Quezon City, who was apprehended by the MMDA. Tapos she was trying to get herself out of that situation by saying na, oh, sandali lang naman ako dito, 5 minutes lang naman, 5 minutes, you miss 5 minutes.
I remember that one.
It so happens that we have so many people, we have so many incidents that show how Filipinos sometimes, if they can get away with it, they'll get away with it, or they'll find a way to get away with it. So that's kind of, that's something that we should probably correct. It is a perfect time now that in this ECQ, in this pandemic, people are more reflective. And let me close this conversation before we get Raymond to probably give his inputs on have the last say on this particular situation. I just want to say that, maybe this is the time for reflection for everyone, that not everything that we used to do we can still do after in this new normal. I think it's time for people to change, di ba? Yun ang yung point doon eh. Raymond, what's your take on this? As an educator.
I didn't get to watch the whole video, and I tend not to make judgments anymore on videos, especially ECQ related.
Yeah.
Like initially, kasi for example, I was very angry when I saw yung people holding like a boxing match outside in the streets, parang to entertain themselves. I'm like, what are you guys doing? And then I was thinking about it. They have no Wi-Fi. There's probably like 8 people in the house. They have no source of income. They have no heater. I mean, they have no aircon. They have no Netflix.
Yeah.
You're gonna lose your mind eh. So, I mean, it's easy kasi for us to say, oh, dapat bawal yan. But I don't know their circumstances then eh. It's definite that, it's hard eh. So, and I'm sure there are some of those videos that talagang warranted. I don't know if this lady was in dire need to deliver that bag of emergency supplies. But I teach kids for a living. I teach kids
it's a bag of rollers.
So I never get angry at kids for like breaking the rules. They're kids. That's what they're supposed to do. If you get caught and then the punishment for it, bahala ka.
It's good that you pointed that out, Raymond. Kasi like when I spoke to our barangay captain here in Las Piñas, the first thing he said was the people who are most pasaway are actually the kids, because they're the ones who can't be, the parents can't stop them from actually going out and doing their thing. So I understand where you're coming from, and putting yourself in their shoes also will give you a different perspective. If you live in a shanty with 10 other people, and then you're in a enclosed area like a community where the houses are dikit-dikit, diba? And then you can actually hear what's happening on the other side of your wall, and then you're not getting enough sustenance, and it's summer, and under the heat of of summer, you're there and you're being asked to stay indoors, and then you're used to actually, diba, communicating, if not making halubilo with other people in your neighborhood. Tapos bigla na lang, hindi pwede, bawal.
It's illegal.
And then you have barangay officials. They're not very particular with communicating themselves, explaining what the rules are about. And then they just tell you, hindi ka bawal.
Bawal lang yan.
So expect also other people to be pasaway. The problem is, with this particular case, this video, you can tell that this woman naman is not mahirap. Hindi naman siya, alam mo yun, she seems like somebody who actually got an education.
Hindi siya mahirap.
So I know what she was trying to bring. I mean, I wonder what she was holding in the bag that she had to get over the...
Very good question.
But
let me try to research on that.
I really appreciate the perspective that Raymond is bringing here. He refuses to comment on something until he's seen it in entirety. That's really the proper temperament for an educator. You want to be able to make a good decision, but in full possession of the facts. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate the fact that yes, Eric, please go.
Sakto, ngayon pa lang, we're being schooled by Raymond already.
Kaya plus points for our educator.
My friends and I talk about these things a lot. My friends and I talk about these things a lot. So.
That's good. I mean, it's always good discourse to have this.
We have a running
Something
joke
like that.
here. Because we have a friend that was really angry why Americans are rioting to go back to work. I think much more so than we are, actually. I feel like it's harder to control Americans than Filipinos.
Yeah.
So, like,
Correct.
if you look at the people that are rioting, it seems very bad, Na parang, why are you contesting the disease, or why are you parang preventing people from like implementing a quarantine? But these are not bad guys. These are hairdressers who want to cut hair, who want to take that risk. Parang, I have 100% chance of losing my house, or I don't get to cut hair. I mean, imagine if they say 1 year wala nang malls. Billionaires will come magrarally ang mga yan Kasi they're definite. They're not gonna have anything left. So
the billionaires will make baka.
Yeah, no. Sila yung unang maglalabas yan. All employees are now going to EDSA to protest unconstitutional act.
But one thing that's a positive for what's going on right now, considering the fact that a lot of people are stuck at home and are jobless. Some are jobless. Some are don't have enough support from the government at the moment. But in general, kasi if you look at the numbers that was presented by the DSWD and the DILG, the amelioration that's been distributed to the poor families, it's almost at the point where of course it's not going to be 100%. There'll be spillage. You'll experience where barangay officials are inept, or they don't know what they're doing. They refuse to give certain constituents the assistance because they're very particular with their own base or supporters. But in general, if you look at it, the government's doing really well because we've reached the 90% threshold of giving out all the amelioration for the first tranche. And the 8,000, as small as it may be for some from the upper middle class or the affluent ones, that's a big deal for the poor families if you get $8,000 to sustain you for the meantime, diba? So, alam mo yun, I know your point there. The one thing that I liked, I picked up from Raymond in his in the way he explains the situation with the lady, and of course the other things that are happening in America now. You really have to put yourself in someone else's shoes for you to understand why they're doing something that may appear to be very stupid or ridiculous. Diba? So yes, now it's time to talk about education, because I think education will take you a long way. So we're gonna segue this to that, and obviously
the children are the future.
Yeah, I believe the children.
Definitely.
If I may help the segue now. If I may help
go
the
ahead.
segue, it's also something that we always discuss. I guess it's a weird thing to try to explain what I do for a living, but it's really about designing systems, right? Whether it's a service, an ecosystem. And to Raymond's point about context is very important. Context and empathy are very important, because if you don't understand why people behave a certain way, it's really hard to force them to change their behavior. But you kind of have to understand in what we call their mental model or even their value system, right? Because Raymond talked about, go ahead, let the kid break the rules, as long as he or she knows what the punishment is, and they have to be ready to accept that. And we talk a lot with my friends about the whole understanding education from a values perspective versus from a punitive perspective. And it's really, we're not just talking about education in school, even when you look at work, right? And it's interesting because the guys that I work with now, you can see their behavior. It's because they were trained a certain way in school, right? When you talk about, kung hindi sinabi ni teacher, wag mong gawin, diba? Kung wala sa curriculum, hindi mo aaralin, diba? And then, aaralin ko yun, nasa test. And then kahit basta tama yung test, even though I don't really understand it, if it's in standardized testing, they say, okay na ako. And it reflects in the way that they behave today. It's like, if the boss doesn't say it, I won't do it. If the teacher, the boss, that's not being measured, I'm not going to do it. Right? Versus, if you go into the values or the outcomes, it's like, hey guys, this is what we're trying to do as a company, or in this case, as a society. Now contributors, whether you're children, employees, etc., how are you going to do it? So I think it's an interesting segue now for this next generation. we know that the challenges are around dealing with a world that is very ambiguous compared to the world we grew up in, right? We wax poetic about the 80s. It was a simple time. And the world now is information overload. Who knows what's around the corner? And so then for the kids, right? How do we teach our kids to deal with a world that is inherently ambiguous when everything we know has been about standardization or information? It's like, memorize this. I remember that Cesar Virata was the prime minister when I was in third grade social studies. I had no idea what that did, right? What good does that do me today? That's, I think that might be an interesting, Raymond, for you to pick up on. I mean, what's the change in the way we educate kids today, so that they when they move on to become the next generation of ladies in loud red and white shirts or enforcers, hopefully they have a better conversation as opposed to sabi ni ganyan, sabi ganyan, right?
Right.
That's
a good point, Ed. As usual. Definitely. So it's a good thing. That's a good point to segue onto our next topic. Obviously, it's about education. So let's do this, folks. So batiin muna natin si Abit Fangkubit, who's a regular now. Meron tayong first ever regular viewer of the blog. It is good if she asked the police to help her to give to the recipient. That's the comment that we got from our messages.
Very practical, very Filipino suggestion.
And like we said, it's no longer us versus them, it's us together. So
maganda.
I've had actually very good dealings with the checkpoints. There was one time I was going up to Antipolo to give like a sack of rice and some canned goods to my caddy sa Antipolo. Kasi wala silang SSS, PhilHealth, Pag-ibig. So parang a bunch of us who play there, we wanted to give. Tapos, pagdating namin doon, the guy asked in the checkpoint, "Sir, saan kayo pupunta?" Wala. Magde-deliver lang. "Sir, bawal yan." Pero sige, pero bukas wag ka nang bumalik. I mean, they're nice guys eh. So, if you ask them, I think they're also tired. Ang init kaya dyan.
Tama.
Naka-long sleeve pa sila.
Exactly.
Oh, yung whole fatigue, naka-fatigue pa sila na uniform.
Naka-fatigue. You should call that, man.
That's good. I think that's precisely the sort of decision making that you want to be able to see in your graduates din di ba? Something when a school can only kasi be judged on the quality of your graduates, and if your graduates are capable of making decisions which are appropriate, humane, but at the same time, di ba, the product of some form of critical thinking or processing, then you can say na tama yung pagpapalaki dun sa mga estudyanteng yan eh. And I think that's the kind of education that Sina Raymond have been trying to do in Bannister Academy. So I'm interested how they've been coping now. Kasi nga, di ba? There's everything's changed, Raymond. So how are you guys doing?
Spoken like a former principal. Okay, Raymond, go ahead.
We got pretty hard. I remember March. Kasi kami August na yung start date namin eh. We've been transitioning over the past few years. So when classes were suspended, actually we had about a month and a half of like classes pa eh. So that's a lot of class time eh. And actually it was a Monday, I remember, because that week on that Monday our accreditor from the International Baccalaureate program was going to fly in. Tapos we were supposed to have a conference with the families for parents' night. And sabi ko, how are we gonna allow our parents to bring in someone who's just traveled abroad? And at the time, we had no clue how bad it was going to be or all of the things that we now know. But we had to cancel it, so it was like a big deal. And then, just like everyone else, we tried to go online, which is very, very difficult.
Okay.
It's very, very difficult for everyone, actually. For the families, for example, if you're a parent and you just lost your job or you're afraid for your livelihood, tapos biglang you have to teach algebra, that's hard. I had parents calling me, for example, "Teacher Raymond, alam mo naman, ako sumasagot nitong test na to, di ba? Wala naman akong magagawa eh. Pwede naman siguro, no?" I mean, like, what can you do eh? Kasi going back to Ed's point a while ago, as a teacher, circumstance is so important. Like, for example, when you're teaching in a class, everyone has to be there. Everyone has to have the same book. Everyone has to know what happened before. Everyone is in the same sort of level of comfort. Ngayon, lahat iba-iba. If you're both working moms, who's gonna teach your kid? If your kid can't go online by themselves, paano yun? I mean, Ateneo, for example, they just passed everyone. And people were like up in arms at it from schools, but that's what they did when World War II happened. What can you do?
Effectively,
Go ahead.
I mean, as a school kasi, people forget that we have to issue grades. There's a deadline at the end of the year where we have to give grades to DepEd. And that counts na So, kailangan magbigay pa rin And you can't like, oh, I failed you because you didn't submit this. Ay, sorry, my father died Sorry, parang we had problems. So, as a school administrator, parang you're not gonna make everyone happy. Some wanted to continue schooling. Some parang please, tigil na. Some wanted the award. So, ang hirap talaga.
Yeah, I just want to, pick up on what you said, Raymond, about, how difficult it is to still continue with the curriculum while at home. But so this might be a little bit counterintuitive on your part to answer, but there are families who've opted for homeschooling. What do you say about that?
Yeah. So homeschooling is a wonderful option. It's one that many families do successfully. I think you met a lot of people who were homeschooled that were brilliant when they got to college. But again, it's circumstance. One of you can choose not to work, so you can teach your kids. You can stand to teach your kids. I mean, it's not that easy. Some people
that's true.
They'd rather pay all the money that they have as opposed to teach their kids. I had a parent
teachers who cannot homeschool their own kids.
Exactly. I had a parent before, he pulled out kasi his kid was failing. So parang galit na galit siya sa akin. Teacher Raymond, parang ayoko sa inyo. Wala, you can't teach my kid. 6 months later, he comes back. Please. Ganon I mean, it's not that easy. And parents, and it's not that easy also for parents to just suddenly just change their circumstance na biglang my wife knows how to teach preschool. Hindi Or that the house is conducive to teaching. Hindi rin Like, you prepare for it So like, I get the frustration of parents na parang, why bakit ganito? Wala ba tayong backup plan? Wala ba tayong parang way na magagawa? And of course, we're not gonna say it to the parent. And I mean, hindi, wala talaga ganyan But I'll give you an example. I had a math teacher. I shouldn't say the subject now. I had a teacher.
It's okay.
Based on the parang decision of the board, our goal was talaga to push live classes, which were online classes like this na at the same time. Wala siyang Wi-Fi sa bahay, wala siyang internet doon. So she had to sneak into another barangay, break the ECU. I mean, not necessarily break the ECU, but travel to her boyfriend's house kasi may Wi-Fi doon just to be able to teach. They don't know that
Wow.
Meron mga teachers, for example, even if they make decent money, they send it all home to the province.
Right.
Hindi siya, sabi ko, bakit ayaw mong mag-video sa class para makita ka? Sir, kasi nakasando lang ako, sobrang init ngayon. Wala kaming aircon dito. I mean, you get it. There's all these circumstances And these people that are like, also going through something, struggling, they're trying to teach your kids
That's true.
It's
That's interesting, Raymond, kasi obviously the DepEd is now contemplating on how to go about the return of students to their respective schools. And obviously part of the arrangement will have some people doing, or some teachers teaching at home or like, right? So, and you're giving us this scenario which is happening right now. It's when you actually tried it with your school. So what do you think? What's your
silver lining?
Silver lining, or what's your perspective on this being implemented successfully?
The schools will really try. Schools we're not prepared. So for example, for us, it's really hard, for example, now to be able to explain to families that, we're gonna be able to open this year and it's going to be different from how it was, let's say, during the beginning of the lockdown. Because the experience was so horrible. But now, I mean, if you imagine when we first started having Zoom meetings, I'd never heard of Zoom, or doing conference calls with your staff, or inumans with your friends. These are like odd things that you did. I mean, hindi ko ma-imagine yun eh. But as time got better, we got better prepared. We have a lamp, we have a camera, we have a space now in our homes. We get better at it eh. So I think that's what's going to happen. The schools that have the resources and the families that have the resources, of course, will be better equipped. But there is no way for the schools. I think the schools will really try. I mean, it's the schools. So they're gonna try and find a way. It won't be ideal for everyone, and it's gonna be difficult for a lot of families. And it's not going to be, for example, in the package that you want. A good example for this is if you want a good steak from a restaurant that, let's say, you and your wife go to all the time, and you can't go there, so you order it. It's not gonna be the same.
Yeah.
It's not going to be as good. It's not going to be like, sizzling on a plate in front of you or wala eh. But it's still going to be the same steak. If you want to get that steak,
Sorry, sorry to interrupt you kasi naalala ko lang na to simplify it, yung ready to eat na Chicken Joy na nabibili mo sa grocery.
Exactly.
Diba?
Exactly.
Nung binili ko yun, excited talaga ako pagdating dito when wala. It's chicken. It's not Chicken Joy, but it's fried chicken.
It's not Chicken Joy. Yeah. That's right. Huh?
One thing I worry about, Raymond, with that scenario that you presented to us is that it's just applicable to certain families who have the resources to do a homeschool type of environment. Like, you have a teacher who will use technology to teach his students, and then obviously the students and their families would have to have Wi-Fi at their homes to be able to watch or participate in that class. Now, if we look at the flip side of that and then wonder what the less fortunate brothers and sisters or families that we have who also have kids who go to school, what are they going to do? Right? Because they can congregate to their respective schools, public schools, and have teacher teach them their lessons because it's a quarantine. And even if it's even after the ECQ, the GCQ will still impose restrictions on having large people congregate in a room or in an area. So what do we do with kids who can't afford, or families who have, or who belong to families who can't afford Wi-Fi? How are we going to teach those kids?
If they can't afford, kasi I mean, this is for the Department of Education, no? I mean, if you look at the public schools, the reason they want to open on August 24, I think, is because they have 1 million teachers. Are you going to pay salary for 1 million teachers for an entire year that you're going to cancel a school year? I mean, of course, the government is also an employer. The Department of Education is an employer. So they're going to try and open this school year. But I think they're going to come up with ways that I think they'll prepare modules. They'll have certain areas. I think certain barangays and public schools, they might have access to Wi-Fi. I know Metro Manila has public Wi-Fi hotspots that they're trying to spread out in the barangays. But I really think you just have to accept it. If you are unsafe, if you feel unsafe to send your child to school, and you want them to go to school this year, you will have to find a way to make modules work, to make maybe sending home exams. Because again, it's not going to be the same. And it's unfortunate that there's a lot of tools that come at a very big expense for a lot of families. But I think it's still a better alternative, even without the Wi-Fi, than having nothing to do for an entire year for your child. So for example, if you're going to public school and wala ka talagang magawa, walang Wi-Fi, ganun talaga eh. You're gonna, the DepEd will try its best. I guarantee you that. I do not think anyone from the Department of Education will not try their best. But the reality is that.
Tama ka, Raymond. John D, as a former principal and an educator yourself, how hard is it to study in an environment where, for example, to put yourself in the shoes of a person who lives in a shanty, and you have a kid who studies in a public school, but now they can't go to the public school to actually study, and you have this kid stuck at home, and that environment obviously is not as conducive to studying. How important is the place of for education that can make an impact?
In education naman kasi talaga, the atmosphere, the learning atmosphere is very, very important. That's why you have all these different kinds of schools. It's also reflective of different philosophies in education. But then generally, the rule of thumb is kasi that you try to create an atmosphere conducive to learning. And there are many, many factors kasi that remain the same regardless of the system. One is, a definite plan. And these are one of the things na mentioned Raymond earlier, na you're going to have to mix up old school with new school techniques. The new school techniques would probably take the form of maybe creating learning or educational hubs centered around the barangay, where you can have strong Wi-Fi signal and perhaps some clustering to make sure it maintains the ECQ quarantine guidelines. At the same time, yung the actual learning matter kasi can be like si Ed is a big believer in resolving things through design. That's what educators do. You design modules for it to be effective as a means of transmitting knowledge or building skills or encouraging an aptitude. One of the reasons why napakaganda ng atmosphere dun sa Bannister Academy is because they're a very, very good mixture kasi of the traditional kasi and the cutting edge. Traditional in the sense na they believe in designing learning experiences. Diba? That's very old school. Diba?
That's a good thing that you mentioned that, John. That's a good thing that you mentioned that, John D, about having a good mix of the traditional way of teaching and obviously the more innovative way. Ed, I'm sure you've studied different systems. You're very interested in this topic, so I'm sure you've read a lot about education and the best practices of going about this. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's a different system entirely in Finland, right? One
of the reasons that I got interested, let me tell a personal story also, right? So my kids are 8 and 3.5. So a few years ago, when we were looking to put our eldest in school, we were looking around at schools, right? I went to a traditional school, Jesuit education all the way, graded, all that stuff. I did have a tendency to say, bend the rules a little bit. But by and large, you're lucky because if you create people who are willing to challenge the rules, because the way that the systems are designed is really, it's pretty standardized. This is what you have to do, and this is the score you need to get, right? Again, I told you it manifests very, very clearly with the people that I work with on a day-to-day basis. And these are not uneducated people, right? These are people who are running our let's just say our industries. I won't even specify which industries because there are a lot of industries. So when we were looking at Montessori, I'm not espousing Montessori or blended or any of these non-trad, etc. But to John B's point, what we liked about the Montessori method was the same philosophies, right? I'll highlight one phrase that John B said: conducive to learning, right? So there's two things there. What do you mean by conducive, really? And the Montessori environment is about actually just letting the kid try it. I like the way they simplified it and said, ganito, you probably have a friend, or maybe that guy is you, who says, I'm bad at math, right? But then when kids are young, they love learning. They're not afraid to make mistakes. They're just going to try everything. And then somehow that gets beaten out of us because of the standardized approach, because of your parents, whoever, whatever. So I come across a lot of people in the corporate world who are just afraid to make mistakes, because they say, hindi ako magaling, hindi ako creative, hindi ko study. But when you start at the very beginning, you say the kid is actually very interested in learning. So whatever the system is, if it does two things. One is it makes the kid appreciate the learning process. And I think that's very important because we used to tease our friends in college, right? Nagka-comsci ka ngayon. By the time you graduate your comsci, outdated na si Pascal or basic or whatever the hell.
I know what you're talking about, yeah.
coding, the syntax for code, the logic, etc. That's the important part you're learning. Not the language, right? Not where I said syntax, but not the syntax, but the logic behind it. So it's the same thing with kids. At an early age, the base philosophy is you make them love learning, so that the attitude in them is, whatever you throw at me now, I'm gonna tackle it because kaya ko yan. I might not know it today, but I won't say hindi ako magaling dyan. So Ron, it's kind of like you said about like the Nordic systems, right? In the Nordic systems, they're like that also. In fact, besides making stuff conducive besides making the kid love learning, they make it very practical. So you look at kids who are, in preschool, or not maybe preschool, in levels 1, who are being given missions as opposed to learning information. You say, hey, here's the problem, or here's the thing you're trying to do. Now you guys, as a group, as a small group of feisty 8 or 9-year-olds, call on your different skills. And it's not social studies, right? It's not history. These are different set of skills already that you're supposed to be learning. I'm sorry to rag on social studies. I love my teacher, but parang, like I said, I don't know what to do with that book. But I do remember that philosophy. Look at all these, teach how to think. That's what you're trying to do for kids today. Go, Eric.
That's a good point, Ed. Eric, you have a very young child that you're taking care of right now. So I'm sure you're already thinking about the future, about how this beautiful daughter of yours will be educated, as according to your expectations. So, what do you have in mind?
Well, I'm just waiting for the schools, man, and their directions. I have 3 kids, and they're gonna go to different schools pa. So each school will be probably doing it differently.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be crazy. I'm just waiting on them. I think Don Bosco came out with something. I haven't read it yet. LaSalle also has come out with something already. And the preschool for my youngest is probably hasn't really replied yet. So wala pang nangyayari. So we're still waiting on that. It's kind of scary, and it's also kind of daunting for as a parent.
It is.
Medyo,
Sobra.
I mean, I wouldn't really know how to go around that, but I'm gonna take it one day at a time, and just prepare for it, and see what I can do to help the teachers also. Kasi one of the things that we've done, as a couple, was to make sure that come the new normal, we're gonna have shifting. There will be times kasi that I'll be allowed to work home, and I'll be at the office. So if I'm home, I'll be in charge of learning and everything, and vice versa. So ganun yung mangyayari during the weekdays. So I think that's one thing that we can do. Also, regarding that Wi-Fi issue, I'm just going to share what we did in the company was, when all this started, so we had to bring all the work home. We had to give people access to the systems remotely. And the problem really is the internet connection. So what we did was we looked at our expense budget for the year, see where we can actually minimize expense, save stuff, and then put it into Wi-Fi. So we're going to one thing that we did was to provide Wi-Fi access to people at home. So at least kahit yung minimum lang na plans, so that they can just go ahead and apply under their name, and the company will just subsidize. Kasi kailangan din kasi work from home and we don't really know until when this is gonna end, di ba? I just came from a webinar kanina that said that the normal timetable of a vaccine is 20 years. The fastest that we got was Ebola at 5 years na vaccine. I mean, wow. So medyo matagal pa pala talaga to.
That's even more bleak than I thought it would. Kasi the projection is like a year and a half, right? That we're gonna have a vaccine, a bakuna. Sabi ni
That's very optimistic, Ron. I mean, considering the track record that we've done, that we've actually been doing in terms of vaccines, medyo mabilis na daw yung 5 year, yung sa Ebola. Kasi yung MERS-CoV tsaka SARS parang wala pa ata.
That's true.
The thing is, we can't really afford 5 years of of this type of status quo. If a lot of people are going to lose their jobs, obviously, because we can't get this the optimal capacity for businesses to run, and they won't get the same type of customers and number of customers to come to their place of business, and that's will have ramifications along the way, and it will affect a lot of industries and a lot of communities as well. One thing I like about what Eric said, the problem solving aspect of what Eric said when talking about the Wi-Fi connection, I want to just throw back I just want to throw this question to Raymond. What was the last problem that your staff or your group solved in your meetings recently? One of the things that we discussed so far.
Well, it's really the plan moving forward and like the different scenarios that we have to account for. And honestly, initially, kasi we'll come up with, this is going to be the plan, and then I'll talk to parents, and then teacher. For example, namin lahat live classes, so you need to have Wi-Fi, you need to have a computer, you need to have this. Teacher Raymond, I have 3 kids. 3 laptops. I mean, if we have to be live at the same time. Or gumawa kami ng calendar na in the beginning kasi we have a bridge program this year. So parang what I told the parents was, we'll cut it short this year and we'll issue grades to everyone. So we'll be missed about a month and a half. We'll have a 3-week period sometime in August. That will be completely online. That's like a bridge program. And that will be not graded, pero we'll try to tackle as much as we missed nung last 2 years. Kasi at least we're better prepared na. At the same time, the parents are. And then it's also practice for us to work out the kinks before we go online na may grades na by the last week of August. Pero the question becomes, and then even let's say first term namin plano online. Pero what happens when a parent says, when the government says pwede nang bumalik, and then a parent says ayokong bumalik? Diba? I mean,
so, I have a question, Raymond. I want to ask you something. Because something that Eric was saying, something that Eric was saying also reminded me of something that I was discussing with some of my teams today. Is that when you look at what the virus or the pandemic has forced us to do, right? Is it's not actually about work from home lang. Because the work from home is about, ostensibly it's about providing Wi-Fi and laptops and remote system access, and that's something that we've done for a lot of our teams. But it also actually changes fundamentally the dynamic of work. Of course, let's talk more about knowledge workers. It's different when you're talking about like physical workers, right? Where you have to be at the grocery store. But even those, there are solutions. And so there was a nice article I read earlier where she simplified it into the 3 things that are actually changing when you look at the new. Let's call it. People always talk about the new normal, but like you said. After this, rather than say work from home is an option, like Eric were saying twice a week, what if work from home is the default, right? Because you're doing a couple of things. Besides the fact that you've allowed remote access to your systems or to the work environment, so the files, the email, etc. 2 other things have fundamentally changed, right? One is that the teams have to learn to communicate what we call asynchronously. Exactly. You mentioned live classes din kasi, right? Kami, we're so used to that. Like Ron said, 6-hour meetings, 3-hour meetings, and man, 1-hour meeting pa lang sa Zoom Friday.
Mahirap na.
We're moving to we're teaching everybody to be asynchronous, where we, for example, get your thoughts down, send it, have somebody read it, have everybody read it. When we come to the meeting, we spend 20 minutes just discussing. Right, so there's asynchronous collaboration that's happening there. Second, and it's a big shift for employers, right? Is a lot of employers here still are in the they call it the ass in seat mentality. It's like if I see your ass in your seat, then you're doing something. But that's not true, right? Especially my ass. So we're looking at results based instead. So the other shift is instead of looking at how many hours the person is clocked, it's really outcomes. Have they delivered what they're supposed to deliver, right? So I think the question, right? The question in front of us now is about how we're delivering education differently. Like it's not as simple as digitizing a PDF and then opening a Zoom call.
Exactly.
like if I were to ask you that question about how would we actually redesign education? First of all, we'd think about what are the things that we need to really teach people. How can we teach it in this new normal where it's asynchronous? It deals with schedule issues and timing issues, and I think there's always a question around attention span, right, for these kids.
Exactly.
So if you look at the three things that have happened to remote workers, right, that we can access our systems, we've learned to work asynchronously, and we have to trust results-based tracking as opposed to did you do 40 hours this week? How might we shift that into the educational environment? Like again, no commitment on your part, but if you just thought of it now, we promise we won't hold you to it and say, hey,
well, one of the things is well, just a caveat, no. I'm not like just like what Mr. Bora said. I like before kasi
Mr.
people didn't have a Mr. Bora. Sir B, kasi teacher yan sa UAND before. Si Mr. B. Jandy. So si Sir B, Sir Bora, he was saying that it's choice. Dati kasi wala namang ibang schools eh. If you were a boy and your family was in a particular income bracket, you send them to this school. So walang choice eh. So I don't think there's like one really best type, and I think it's really how well it's run. And I use was it Finland or Norway as your example?
Yeah, Finland and Norway.
I mean, you can say all you want about their system, but if you take a look at it, they still have standardized tests at the end. Yes. And I think the biggest component of why their schooling is successful is that they pay their teachers very well.
So they
pay their teachers very well. If you go to a public school and they're traditional and you quadruple their salary, you see what happens. Eh? So they're paid really well. Eh? So, but in this particular case, kasi, one of the biggest problems that one of the biggest things we're going to be needing from parents, it's not necessarily to teach their kid, but to, I mean, like as a teacher, one of the most important, the first books we give our teachers is First Days of School. What's his name? Harry Wong. Harry Wong is a teacher, and he says that the most important skill a teacher can have is classroom management. So for parents, because their classroom is no longer with us, so I can't say to the kid, sit down, open your book, go to page 9, bring out your notebook, write. The parents have to be the ones to help them do that. They have to manage the kids. And for some parents, there's a distinction between teaching your kid and getting them into the right frame of mind to be able to learn it. So I think that's what parents are going to have to struggle with. But from
I think
Raymond, allow me to. One point there.
Before I forget. Sige Ron, go.
No, I just wanted to synthesize. I think kasi baka mapahaba yung conversation. I was going to synthesize what Ed and Raymond talked about. Ed tapped into something really interesting that can work for both a workplace and a school. The asynchronous meetings,
collaboration and communication.
And like I can imagine people preparing for a meeting already, reading up on what they're going to talk about, and then once they're in the meeting, right off the bat, they're going to discuss it right away. And the same challenge, diba? Discuss na lang kaagad. Wala nang mga present pa ng kung ano-ano na nagpapahaba. Diretso na kaagad discussion na, what do you think of this idea? Ganun kaagad. And it's going to shorten the meeting.
It teaches the presenter, dude. It teaches the presenter to get his ideas across. Kasi babasahin ng tao yun.
Exactly. Now, in the same vein, like with our educators, with the current circumstances, do you think the parents will be able to cope with that type of type of responsibility for their kids? Like they have to really, go to their kid and let's study this together before you school.
I have a lot of faith in parents. I have a lot of faith in parents.
You think? Okay.
Yeah. Because we don't have a choice. I mean, it's really that. And unless, kasi going back to going back to your point a while ago, no. Like for example, when we had live classes in the beginning, it was so difficult kasi parang the parents were saying, why go through all that trouble of trying to attend class all at the same time? Tapos hindi naman ako nagsasalita. Exactly your point. So like one thing that we're doing now is aside from, let's say, the communication tools that most schools already have, Google Meets, Google Classroom, parang we have to redo our curriculum because we're traditional school. You follow my pace. I am the anchor of the discussion. The content comes through me.
Okay.
It has to be different now, because I don't have the power to make kids pay attention to me, and the circumstances are going to be so different. So, like, we're discussing to redo the whole curriculum into and change it really. So, for example, one of the things that we're doing now is we're getting a learning management software so that the kids can have parang we'll have live classes for those that parang yung videos na gagawin namin, we're getting the teachers more tools, so better cameras, maybe a light, a better microphone, maybe. No, like YouTube stars. I told them you need to be a YouTube star now, because that's what's gonna happen. So we started giving pigs to like a videographer that we have on retainer for like events in the school to like come up with like a feel for the videos, because we're not going to allow lectures to happen anymore kapag live classes. It doesn't make sense.
Right.
It's too difficult. And sayang yung opportunity to talk to the kids. So parang dati kasi...
How big are your classes, Raymond? How big are the classes typically?
The biggest is 20. The biggest is 20. We're a small school.
But yeah, even 20 is hard. Even 20 is hard.
Average is about 15. So parang for us,
sorry. I think one of the things that we need to realize also, that this issue, the COVID issue, is a fluid one. It parang day by day it changes, and the faster that we adapt to it, I think the better. Definitely, most or if not all types of industries will switch to digital. That's the direction now. And ang galing din yung sinabi ni Raymond na let's just videotape it and then show it to the kids at their own pace. Tapos, may parang e-learning stuff that they can actually work on in the computer. Diba? And dun yung knowledge check, parang something like that. I think really one of the biggest things that the different industries are going to do during this time, is really to redesign the business models on how they're operating and I think they really need to figure out. And again, it's fluid. People are going to make mistakes. People are going to get frustrated. But as soon as we adapt to it, the sooner it normalizes, it becomes norm, diba? Parang something to that point. So it's going to be a painful process because we're undergoing the same process as well. But it's something that has to be done, diba?
Raymond, has there been studies done on the learning curve as far as the students are concerned who are being taught at home? Is there like a way, or have people attempted to quantify the success rate of people who were taught at home by their teachers from a remote area?
Well, I don't think kasi an entire population who did not want to go to online schooling has ever been forced into online schooling before. But if you take a look at, for example, I mean, like, I might come off like very negative as to like it's gonna be so hard and whatnot. But imagine this happening in, let's say, the 1910s or the 1920s. Wala na. We don't have the tools anymore.
Right.
We're so lucky the fact that my child can maybe not go to school for a year, but she can see her friends. I mean, we can Zoom with family. There's like all these wonderful tools now that our teachers are learning about. That's always been there. That now we can make better use of. So I think it's a learning curve. I'm sure it's going to be very difficult for everyone involved. But I think parents don't have a choice, and teachers. I believe in teachers as well. They're gonna find their way.
Johnny, have you tried taking classes online? Have you tried taking classes online?
Yes, I'm actually taking multiple classes online also.
How hard is it to learn online compared to a classroom setting?
Kasi our generation is hardwired to learn in a certain way. So I had to unlearn a lot of my tendencies. So I noticed that the most successful online classes are the ones that try to replicate yung feedback system that you get from talking to a really good teacher. Sa atin kasi nasanay tayo masyado sa mga, our idea of a good teacher for our generation is an excellent lecturer. Like someone who can keep you spellbound in an auditorium of 150 people.
Right.
But then, for other generations naman, big voice, great presence, di ba?
Funny.
Someone of an entertainer, di ba? Parang ganon. But, for kids nowadays, while they do appreciate those people who can hold them spellbound in a learning environment for a long period of time, they really appreciate yung mga teachers who are willing to go out on a limb. I remember I read something about, the way in which the CEO of Max's Restaurants was saying that they're going to be trying to cope with this crisis. Sabi niya, it's not really rocket science. No, we just have to fail fast and try harder. And I think that a lot of children also, a lot of people in a younger generation, diba, they appreciate those people who are willing to take those risks. Teachers are willing to fail with them and then to try harder the next time. Those are the ones that they really appreciate. And it's not as if, a teacher who's not a good lecturer is not a walang kwentang teacher, You have to develop all sorts of skills which allow you to facilitate feedback. You're a good listener. At the same time, magaling ka mag-adjust. You're very creative with yung mga requirements mo. You try to hit all of the learning requirements that are traditional but in a very progressive way. Creative teachers now are, I think that's the premium right now, really, for the teaching industry. It's no longer about the research output that you can produce or how good you are as a lecturer, but then how well you can manage a class online and how creative you are, diba, in making sure that that your students meet in learning objectives.
I understand the teacher side of this conversation, John D. But let me ask Ed here. Like, if we look at the standpoint of the student, for one, is it possible, because we are used to getting information from a source, like a teacher, a professor, tell us what to do, what to read, what to study. But do you think people are capable of learning by themselves? Is this like an alternative as well? Ed, you think, given the situation that we're in right now?
I think absolutely, because it's one of the things we always point out is our generation, right? The most we had was an encyclopedia and maybe mga kwento ni Lolo. And so it was a matter of getting, as you said, from a source. Today, we're just purely about information, not skills yet. When it comes to information, the key skill or the key requirement for learners is discernment, right? Because there's a lot of information. In fact, when even again, going back to the corporate setting, there's so much noise sometimes. Now, when you listen to what people are talking about in the boardrooms, you're realizing, shit, half the stuff they're talking about isn't even important. So I don't know yet exactly how it's done, but what we really have to be able to teach our kids are skills, right? So call it a value chain. Because both John D and Raymond pointed out a few things that obviously there are requirements that are being required by the governing bodies, right? Like DepEd. So, for example, grades must be submitted, or certain curriculum needs have to be met, and over time, maybe even that needs to be revisited, right? Because like I work in industries with regulators. So, for example, the NTC or the PSP. And we're saying if we really want to redesign banking or redesign telecommunications, the organizations are constrained today by what the regulator does. And so no matter how much we want to recreate, for example, like my worry early with the Montessori school is, pagdating na sa college, if everything there is still requiring her to take a standardized test, or if the employer says, what's your grade? And she has no grade to show, but she says, I'm hella good at solving problems, right? But the ecosystem still says, wala kang transcript. Diba? So the ecosystem has to change. I believe, back to your question, absolutely, I think people can learn. I think maybe we need to move toward other types of learning as opposed to information recall. But, there's schools of thought around teaching people discernment, storytelling, flow, just the left brain or the right brain stuff, just the non-linear, ambiguous world type stuff that our kids need to get good at. But then how do you measure that for a future employee, for a future employer, and for the school that wants to take this kid to the next level? You're saying, I don't know how to say that this kid is actually good enough because I don't see her math grade or her studies grade. So the system also has to evolve and say, how are we going to be able to make it so that the schools, the employers will say, I'm going to test or I'm going to look at a different skill set. So they can learn, but they might not learn what we think they're supposed to learn today. Like John D said, based on what we grew up with, there's a new set of skills and a new set of measures that we're going to need to look at. And that's something we also need to throw to the regulators, not just because the schools can't solve it. The schools are constrained. I mean, I'm not saying they can't solve it. They can solve it within constraints, just like the banks, just like the telecommunications companies, right? There are constraints today that need to be revisited at some point. And
we had a conversation a few days ago with Eric and John D about the barangays having a the level of education for most barangay officials is at grade 4, and it got what? Yes, Actually,
we're very surprised to have it confirmed by Siron.
Former Secretary Gary Olivar actually said, nationwide. Former Secretary Gary Olivar confirmed that fact that that is the standard or the level of education most of our barangay officials are have attained so far. And Eric, let me ask you, Eric. Given the inputs that Edmund said, it does give you a different insight on how we can go about the fact that some of our officials are not as schooled as most of our professionals are. Do you think there's a chance for them to elevate their comprehension skills, their discerning skills, given that our communication skills, given that they are limited in that regard?
Well, definitely. I mean, you can still teach old dogs new tricks. I believe in that. No.
Okay.
I think so, man. I really do. It all depends on the recipient. If he's willing to learn. If this guy is shut, wala na talaga. You can't teach him kahit ano pa yung classing type of learning tool ang gagamitin mo.
Yeah.
Wala na yan. But normally kasi people learn from things that they're interested in. Take my youngest. Alam mo, ang dami niyang natutunan sa YouTube. She learned the alphabet on YouTube. Not me, not my my wife. Wala.
No, not us. Yeah.
YouTube, man. I mean, if she's interested in that, and also the colors, the numbers, lahat YouTube. So I'm like, nagsasalita na siya. If we're at the mall and she sees a word, she'll just say, "Oh, okay, this is BENCH." Gaganon siya parang, and she's like 2. I'm like, what the hell, diba? So parang,
wow.
As long as people are interested and willing to learn, yes, we can. Especially if it's done in a mass scale. So, for example, it's a nationwide revamp, or hindi naman revamp, but educational movement for these barangay officials to learn. Pwede pa yan. As long as we have good modules, people who can teach well, kahit na online yan pare, and we check for learning, kaya yan
Yeah.
That's a good point, Eric. Yeah, go ahead.
Yung sinabi nyo nga, it's 4th grade education. Even that label connotes a certain level of reading, writing, and math.
Yes.
But are those things necessary? Maybe he can't read too good, right? But baka ano siya. Remember Zoolander can read too good. But but if he has the key communication skills and discernment skills, maybe he doesn't need to read too good or doesn't need to know algebra. So baka iba rin yung qualifications
memos either. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I like actually towards the end of the show, medyo na malapit na tayo siguro mag-end. I'd like to hear more from Raymond if pwede.
Actually, I was gonna ask Raymond after you said that. If I may add, Rick.
Yeah.
See, kasi it's a good thing you pointed out about having the educational level of a grade 4 for our barangay officials. Do you think there's a way for educators to improve the discerning skills, the capacity of our barangay officials as an educator? Do you think this is something that we can work on?
As in terms of like teaching adults or like
teaching adults, like given the situation right now, we have a lot of barangay officials who have very bad comprehension skills. And they're the ones who are supposed to communicate information to their constituents. So now, if we want to improve the level of service from our barangay officials, as an educator, what would you do?
I think barangay officials, I'm sure as a corporate trainer, if anyone has ever been in corporate training, I'm sure they can be taught. I'm sure they can be taught. The difficulty there would be how. I mean, like how much would we invest in it? How long it would take? But I think, kasi, I mean, at the end of the day, the people we vote in, we voted them in it. I mean, really. I mean, it's a reflection. I was talking to a friend that was saying that he was so angry at the government. Parang they're so evil. I really don't think that they're evil. I think they're just trying to do their best. This is what what you voted for. This is what we have. So what can you do? I think it takes time. I think it takes time. The general population gets better, more educated, hopefully translates into better things.
I think as long as there's a program, and it's being run throughout like forever, na lagi na lang niraran yung program na yan, matututo rin yan eh. You will elevate this generation of barangay officials from one level to another, and then it will just follow eh. Kasi it's going to be the norm again. So, but there has to be a program. And as Raymond said, matagal gawin yung program na yan. You really have to think. Hanapin mo ano bang gusto mong ituro, ano bang gusto mong results na makuha mo from this, di ba? Go ahead, Raymond.
I think now it's actually much easier to do it. Especially now that we feel like apparently our lives depend on who our mayor is. Diba? I mean, if our barangay captain is not very good, I might die from this. So we expect more now from our barangay captain. So instead of voting for whoever wants to take the post or is willing to go through the trouble of running as a barangay captain, because I'm sure it's not an easy job as well. Now, parang kailangan you have to have plans. You need experience. You need this, or what have you done to show that you're worthy of managing a barangay? And in times that I'm going to need my relief goods, or you're going to enforce something that might actually save my life, then
But you can understand the gravity of the problem, right? Like how long it's going to take for us to fix this. Well, let's give you one problem that I can cite that will make it a little bit impossible to change that overnight. Like people vote barangay captains based on affinity for the person. If this person's entertaining, if he can dance the buduts, even better. If you can sing, the credentials, it doesn't matter. If you can communicate your personality well, then that's who I'm going to vote for. That's how voters vote for. I think the basic question here is voter education. How can we have voter education implemented in that level so that our voters will pick the right candidates to govern them? But that's going to take a long time. And I think it goes back to why you're here, Raymond, because you're there to teach impressionable kids, and they still have the chance to actually make a difference in the midterm or long term as far as our country is concerned. So, what do you think? Are educators nowadays aware of their importance as to making sure their kids, the next generation of voters will vote wisely and will be discerning enough to sort of lead our country to a certain direction that we're supposed to be?
I think most teachers have always been aware of how important their job is. Kasi you see it when you get it right. Parang wow. So ang dami mong pwedeng magagawa. And then, but when you mess it up as well, nothing breaks your heart more. And like, you could have done more for this kid, or no. And one thing I think the parents are going to see now is just how important they are going to be for their kids. Like now, especially now, or like how important teachers are for their kids. Like, wow, ganito palang kahirap bago umupo yung anak ko. Or wow, ganito palang kahirap bago sumunod yung anak ko. I mean, I'm a teacher, but I've never spent this much time with my daughter. So parang like, I get the sense now na parang oo nga no, I'm needed so much eh. And I think that's why teachers are local. I mean, I forgot the Latin term for it, but they're second parents eh.
Yeah.
They stand in lieu of a parent. So
in loco parentis.
In loco parentis.
Yeah. So it's the parents really. I think
loco parent.
Loca parentis, loco. My Latin is very bad. Eh. My Latin. I think it's the parents. Eh. I think it's the parents now that are going to be like realizing that.
Yeah, I think this is a very good opportunity for everyone because if you treat, now that we're in this situation, if you treat your industry, the company that you're in, as a startup again, ang daming opportunities. You can really redesign your business plan. Eh. I think that's one of the things that I know that also stuck to me in one of those webinars, that everybody is in startup mode right now. So it's an opportunity for you to look at the positive things, no, on what you can actually do in the time like this, and just be creative. Just be creative. Last night we were talking to a musician, and he came up with really creative ways on how he can actually continue his craft, even when there's no more gigs, no more concerts, and so on and so forth. Correct. So I'm pretty sure that the educational sector will actually do something, because you're a very, very important part of the society.
Oh, definitely.
So lahat ng suporta talagang tatapon talaga sa inyo yan. I wish you luck, no, Raymond. Maybe siguro my last question is for Bannister, your school. What are the things that are solid right now that you are going to change come the new normal? Ano yung mga na-resolve na ninyo?
Right now, when our plan is really trying to come up with a plan that works for everyone. That's what we're doing now. Initially, kasi parang we wanted to set like, ganto ganyan, this is what you have to do, but it's going to be so difficult. So our plan is, when the government says, for example, that it's okay to go back, and let's say regular in-person classes do go back, we're going to allow parents the choice to send their kids to school. And then, for example, we're imagining it na for classes, we'll have videos that will make na parang YouTube channel, na a bit professionally made. Then that's how we deliver content. Pero yung discussions, for example, in class, I hope we resume sometime in the year. Pero there's a chance that some don't want to come back. Eh. So pwede na I'm teaching in a regular class, and then we'll install video cameras in the school so that kids from who want to maybe join the class online can do so. We'll have probably a moderator that they can send messages to so that they can be a part of it, because that's important.
That's true.
And then at the same time, for those that maybe cannot join live and cannot go there, the LMS will sort of be their module that they can go to. But there will still be times when parang we'll have a mandatory small group class of about 5 with a teacher for discussions.
Yes.
A lot of the things that, for example, like the school events, all the socialization that happens there. Like I was in a meeting this morning with our student affairs head. Like, what are we gonna do? I mean, how do we do PE? How do we do? I mean, like football. How do you do football? So we're coming up with a lot of different ways na just so that the kids can socialize together. It's gonna be a challenge talaga. It's gonna be a challenge.
Yeah.
That hit us.
Raymond, can I ask them also, because it seems that you're going to be if you're going to be investing that much also, of course, you're going to be putting up cameras in your class. I hate to be the one to ask it, but as a parent, kasi I'm very concerned also about tuition. I'd like to understand kasi, I'd like to be understanding of everyone, because everyone needs to earn a living. But I'd like to understand, what is the thinking which goes behind the current thinking behind tuition fees now.
It's a big concern. It's a big concern. I've had parents tell me, for example, Teacher Raymond, hindi ba pag may internet naman na ginagamit sa amin, dapat deduct yun? Or dahil ako yung magtuturo, dapat parang ako yung babayaran. O, hindi naman babayaran, pero at least ma-discount. or if there's electricity that's not being used, no? But
So
there are
what's the
certain,
school fees, di ba? That school charge in the
I'm
beginning
sorry?
of the school year. Di ba meron mga certain school fees that
yeah. I think kasi it's difficult for schools to change. Like we're big organizations that are very they're not mobile. They're not very agile people. I mean, so if you take a look at there's certain fees when we were going through because we had those concerns also. So when we looked at the fee structure of schools, one thing that you notice is that a lot of the tuition kasi that parents pay, they go direct to the teachers, or for example, in our case, also for rent. So parang those are wala tuloy-tuloy yan I mean, you can't say that
cash flow talaga.
Because kasi like you can't say na, I'm taking on a lot of the responsibility also, therefore may nawala sa teacher. In the scenario I was talking about, that's going to be 3 different classes that you're going to have to do. So it's for the same salary for our teachers, and it's going to be 3 times as much work because the responsibility that the parents take on is not something that was taken from us. It's something that the situation has added into the
sort of like a force majeure.
Parang ganun So there are certain expenses I think that schools are
so the
the
teachers have
parents.
to educate the parents as well.
Yes.
That's what you're saying. So now they're preparing syllabus for the kids. The parent essentially becomes the teacher, the guide in the home.
Yeah.
So the teachers have to think about what can I give the parent.
Tama. How can I equip the parent to teach essentially?
And I'm sure there are certain expenses, for example, na we won't incur anymore. Pero we don't know kasi rin how this is going to play out So it's very, very difficult then for the schools.
Raymond, well put. I mean, it's a great explanation.
That's a great explanation.
Why people still have to pay the school's tuition.
I mean, it's hard. I mean, it's really hard now.
We get it, brother. We
really
get it. But thank you so much. I mean, before we end this program, let's go around for one last time. Ed, you have shout outs or maybe a few things that you want to add to the conversation or probably ask Raymond?
Well, no, I just, thank you, Raymond, for sharing a lot of your insights. Like you said,
thank you for having me.
It's really, it's nice to hear from an educator standpoint, but as you said, you're not just coming at it as teacher Raymond, but parent Raymond and school administrator Raymond.
Right.
So anyway, we come at it from parent Edmund and parent John D, and maybe Mr. Bora has also some school admin background. But it's nice to see all the views come together. Right? So thank you for illuminating us on that. And we look forward to see what happens. Because I think ultimately, like, was it John D who said there's going to be many, many different methods that will be tried in the coming months?
Definitely.
Yung gagana. And I don't think it's going to be a one size fits all. It will work for other people. So exciting times in that sense.
Yeah. No, it's nevertheless, we're looking forward to seeing that version of the future of having cameras installed in classrooms and, how the schools will cope and the students at the same time will deal with such a setup. Eric, how about you?
Yeah, I'd like to thank Raymond for being here. Learned a lot. I wish you luck on the future, man. We're all out supporting
good luck
that.
To all of us.
As parents,
good luck to all of us.
I know,
You're all
man.
teachers na rin. You're all teachers na rin.
I know.
That's right.
Force majeure. But then again, I think it's a very exciting time as well. I mean, COVID aside, I mean, it's really a time for us to learn new things, adapt to the situation, and really try to survive this time, and thrive as well. I think it's possible, and we can only do it together, and we just need to cooperate with each other, be open to suggestions, be open to ideas, because again, startup tayo lahat ngayon diba?
Exactly.
So that's really a very good opportunity. And lastly, I'd like to thank si Hubert, si Abet, si Mikel, si Jojo commenting and being participative dito sa show natin. So thank you very much, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
And also May Tumbaga, who says, hi, boss Eric.
Si May.
Who's May?
Yeah, she was She's one of my staff before in my
cool.
previous job.
Okay, that's good. Talagang may following ka talaga, Rick, eh. Huh?
Oh, definitely.
Not like you, man. I mean,
because no. He has the best lighting, eh. Sino mo, ang ganda-ganda ng lighting ni Eric, di ba? Pang-artista talaga.
Oh, nga, no. Eric, Principal John D. Principal Ramona.
I'd like to thank Raymond for coming on the show, because we learned so much from your experiences, and the way that you put it, that, for the teachers kasi and for schools, it's not as if things were taken away from you guys, but then, more responsibilities were added. That's a great way of looking at it, for parents. So normally we just look at the tuition fee and then we say na, ay, mahal. Pero we never realize that, this pandemic is actually forcing you to create more stuff to make sure that I, the dumb-ass parent, do not screw up teaching my kids. So I really appreciate that, And again, I'd like to remind everyone, the virus may be out there, but, hope is in here within us and among us. So, let's just do our best as we wait in joyful hope for the lifting of this ECQ, and as we walk into that brave future that we know is going to be there for us. Let's do our best to support the government, support one another, and then let's all try to be kinder to one another, because I think that's the only way all of us are going to survive this. So thank you very much.
Amen.
And world peace.
World peace.
Raymond, you have the last say, Raymond. Oh, well, I do.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. I hope I was able to talk about what it is you guys want to talk about. Very, very thankful for being here. At least being able to talk from a school perspective.
Yeah,
yeah,
we really appreciate
solid.
it.
Yeah.
Raymond,
next time, inuman na dito.
Tama.
We'll invite
So
you
we're
to
gonna
the
have a
inuman.
session when if they lift the liquor ban, then we're gonna do
Then
toasts.
we're gonna have a special inuman.
Special Istoryang futBOLERO. See what happens if people are liberated, diba? So
Yeah.
what kind of show we'll have if we did something like that?
Waiting in joyful hope for the lifting of the liquor ban, di ba?
Yes.
So guys, that's
from liquor that you already have, right?
You're right, Ed.
That's a value from liquor you already have.
Now I wonder what Ed has in that canister. Okay, well. All right, well, that's it for the show, folks. Thanks a lot for joining us, for viewing our little blog called Istoryang futBOLERO. Ed, Eric, John D, Raymond, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And you guys, don't forget the usual reminders that we give our audience: to wash your hands, use a mask when you're out, and social distancing. Okay, wag kang pasaway.
Walang pasaway. Yeah.
Wag kang pasaway. Good night, everyone. See you. Have a good one.
Bye, guys.
Goodbye. Galing.
Thank you.
I enjoyed this.